Josh Hood in the house.
What's happening, Buzzy?
Mm.
Oh, always a pleasure to be here. And, even if I had to nudge you this time, I was like, to get on.
Never have to nudge us.
Old.
We love you, Josh.
We're getting old.
But listen, hey, brother, you are welcome back to the Crew Reviews.
Yeah.
Treadstone Transgression right here is your third foray into the Ludlum world. And although I loved your last two books, in my opinion, this one is by far the best.
Yeah, my favorite.
But would you mind giving our listeners the elevator pitch of what they're in store for when they read this book?
Yeah.
Man, I haven't done an elevator pitch in forever.
I know. This is the hardest question you're going to get.
Well, that's good. It's about Adam Hayes, a former Treadstone operative who has left Treadstone, which we all know from the Bourne books and the movies. And he is trying to get back to his family. He has a son. He's bought a house. He wants to leave that life behind when he's kind of pulled back in for a final mission that takes him to Haiti. And then shit goes crazy.
And then
He's
Josh
gotta do
Hood,
gangster stuff.
yeah,
Josh Hood does what Josh Hood does.
Yep, and then you get all of it in your face.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah, that was an okay elevator pitch. So we'll go with that. But while most authors in the genre have pivoted away from the Middle East and they focused on either China or Russia, you decided to drop Hayes in the Caribbean, which I love. I love the Caribbean. That's great. Although you do throw in the obligatory Russian or two, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They suck.
Well, it was, I like that whole Wagner thing is so fascinating. I had to throw it in there. And I got to keep turning the computer. I'm like,
Where are we going? Where are we going?
New Treadstone notes on there. And I'm like, damn, can they see that? Like,
Yeah.
give away the whole book.
Oh my God. That's the next book or the book after? Is that what that is?
This is the next one that's coming out. So like, y'all need to edit that down. Cause I was like, oh, there's a whole synopsis right there. Just block that.
All right. We'll talk about that at the end of the interview, but here's what I want to know. So you drop Hayes in the Caribbean. Well, first he's in the East stateside, obviously.
Yeah.
But you drop him in the Caribbean, and I'm curious. I don't see any maps behind you, but I'm curious if setting the plot in Haiti was you just throwing darts at a map, or if you had a specific reason for picking that locale.
Well, I've tried with all these books to stay. I think I've done it. Stay out of the Mideast and all that stuff. And so when I was coming up with this book, it was weird. It was there was a lot of things that happened after I picked it, but like I was thinking, like, what haven't I done? What would be something cool? What would be a cool setting? Because with these books, and the way I write, I need a place where I can just blow up a lot of shit. And like, you can't that's got to be.
That's Switzerland.
I can't do it in like downtown New York. I'm like, how long would he last? Well, so you got to find a place that's like, in my mind, is like a Wild West where anything could go. And so I was like, Haiti is kind of crazy, like, because they'd had an earthquake, and I was watching this thing with Anthony Bourdain where he'd gone down there. He'd kind of met with Sean Penn, and they had set up this like refugee camp on this old golf course. And I'm looking at it, and then they like kind of cut to them going through Carnival, and I was like, dude, can you imagine trying to like, dragging somebody along and there's Carnival going on? And
I can now.
Yeah. And so that's where, I picked it, and I was like, I think that is going to work. There wasn't a lot of stuff on Haiti, like really anywhere, but for those who say, hey, that's such a stretch, I think like someone said like the DIA that has never and does not do any work in Haiti. That's actually not true, because that was like one of the very first.
Who said that?
I don't know, some fan.
Oh, okay.
The send a nice,
like your editor.
No. So that we have a long history there, and it's so, the fact that it's so poor but it's so close to the United States is like this weird juxtaposition, and it's like we're wasting all our time like all over the world doing God knows what, and then Like these people are starving. And then as I'm writing the book, like the president gets assassinated and anarchy kind of ensues. And it was just like, wow, this place really could be like, you know, a place where you have this type of stuff happen.
Right.
It's happening right now.
Loved it. Yeah, I loved
Yeah,
it.
what kind of a justification for your thought process there?
Yeah.
Well, so we're, you know, now we're into this franchise that you're working on, and there's a lot of authors that are kind of curious in that when you're creating your own work from, you know, without any history, it's kind of you. But when you're coming into a franchise, they kind of want to know, do you come into it with a list of kind of do's and don'ts from the estate or from the publisher that kind of directs you, and maybe it limits you a little bit too, but do you get kind of a direction saying, hey, we can't do this, we can't do that, where they might not get it if they're creating, you know, or trying to start a new franchise of their own? Did you, I'm not going to ask for specifics, but did you get
I mean,
my like
connection, I guess, with the estate is through Tom Colgan, my editor.
Right.
And I think he works like with the Clancys. He's, you know, this is like one of the things he specializes in. And so he has, you know, he's, when it first started out, he kind of laid out what they wanted to do. And, you know, there were some boundaries, like the one that stuck out was it actually kind of shocked me. But remember the Bourne movie that didn't have Bourne in it, but had Jeremy Renner in it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, if you watch the director's cut with everything he left in, it's a really good movie. Like, I thought the idea of the Kims and stuff were great. And they were like, no, you can't reference that at all. And which is really weird because, like, there's a lot. You look at that book and then you look at the rest of the Ludlum world, there are characters still in that movie that are still alive while everybody else in the Treadstone universe, like, they were killed at the end of every, you know, movie. And, you know, the guy, what was his name? He was in Rounders and stuff. I can't think.
Matt Damon.
No, the other dude. Ed Norton.
Ed Norton, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, Ed Norton, he, like, played.
But they were both in
like,
Rounders.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like 20 degrees of Kevin Bacon right here. Everything goes back to Matt Damon. But like this guy just, you know, he's like comes out of nowhere. He's running this like program that the government doesn't even know about. And like at the end of the movie, he just gets away. And I've always been like, where's that dude? Like, that'd be a great tie-in for one of these books.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Other than that, they just were kind of like, hey, I got the sense that they didn't want these books to start crossing. Like, I think in the first one, I made like a little reference to Bourne. Like, my thought originally was like, man, it'd be cool if they like these books intersect. And hopefully we'll be able to do something like that in the future. But it was kind of, originally the book was supposed to be set at Treadstone had closed down and there was no Treadstone. And then halfway through, they were like, the decision was made to like, we need to leave like Treadstone and this world open so that the Bourne that Brian is working in with and Simon Jarvet, who's going to be writing Blackbriar, which is another offshoot. And he's an awesome dude, great writer. Like, it needed to be open so everybody could go kind of everywhere. And so that was kind of like the only things that they said.
Oh, okay.
Oh, dude, I got to tell you, as, you know, like a fan of Bourne and Treadstone, I would love to see them intersect.
Yeah, same.
I would love that. I would love to see the crossover or see references or inferences of characters in either story, like Brian Freeman's or yours. Like, I think that as a fan, I think that would be actually pretty cool.
And I think the only person who's like actually been into every book is Shaw. Like, I think Levi Shaw's in every book somehow as the director of Treadstone. He shows up, and I'm like, that dude. Like, you know.
So, well, I mean, you in the beginning of this book, you give Adam Hayes a respite. You know, he's recovering from his injuries from exile, right? At the end of the book,
right.
But of course, that couldn't last, and so he gets tasked with, and it's Levi Shaw doing. He said, "I got this easy mission. You're going to set up a safe house, right? It's pretty easy, right?"
Yeah.
And he should be back in time for his son's birthday party. And so, like, that's his driving force for Adam Hayes. It's his family now. It's his son, his family. But does Josh Hood ever feel that pull back to family? Either when you're writing now, or when you were deployed in the 82nd Airborne, or as a SWAT team? And if you did, and I'm sure you did, how did you deal with that?
Well, lucky for me, like I was just got out of the Army before, obviously I was married. And then like I quit the SWAT team the day after Jake was born for exactly this reason. I left the sheriff's department and everything. And it was
amazing.
Like, yeah, well, I don't know if it was amazing or not. But
no, it's amazing.
I don't see how people do that. Like I can't even get my mind around it. I mean, you got kids, right?
I did it.
Sure.
So I left the Secret Service specifically because of that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We talked about this before.
I left my career for the same exact reason.
Yeah.
And you know, people talk before you have kids. I remember my dad and mom saying, like, you're going to make sacrifices for your children that you can't even imagine. You're like, oh, whatever. And I remember like little Josh being like a douche when they would say that, like, oh, what have you sacrificed?
Right.
You know, I never asked to be born. And then fast forward, it happens to you. And it was like, there was no question. It was like, I'm not bringing this into the house. Like, I'm not going to be one of those guys that gets smoked, you know, doing a warrant, and my son's got to grow up without a father. Like nobody else, no man's going to raise my children. Right. And, you know, so I made that decision, never looked back. But that being there and those thoughts and having seen it, because you guys have witnessed it too, is like, how do they do that? Like how, you know, like I would, and I put that a lot into Adam Hayes, is like, if I had my son hanging out, like my son spent the night with his cousin last night. And I was like, dude, house is quiet. Little, you know, Marlo's upstairs asleep. I was like, where is that dude? You know, because he's like my buddy. And so like, I can't imagine being like, oh, you got to go to Afghanistan for 18 months. You're not going to see your son. God. You come back and he's like, "Hey, Dad." What's up? Like, whoa.
Yeah, he barely recognizes you.
He's got a mustache.
Yeah, he doesn't know you. He's scared of you and all this stuff. He's like drinking Natty Light, and all of a sudden he's got a Camaro. You're like,
God, is he from Jersey now? Like, what?
That's a Southern thing, man.
He hung out with Chris too long. Yeah.
No, that's not just a Southern thing. That's a Jersey thing, by the way.
Well, we have that in common then, because like, you know, he's rolling around with glass packs on his, you know, 85 Silverado drinking Coors Light. You're like, whose kid is that?
I don't know how they do it. The guys who go overseas, or even, you know, agents or police officers, you know, missing the birthdays, missing the anniversaries, missing all that stuff. And like, if you're deployed 18 months, you come back. For us, 18 months, like my face isn't going to change that much, maybe a little bit, but for the children,
you're an entirely different person.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Sure. It's crazy.
Well, hey, you mentioned Adam Hayes. You have this inner voice that frequently talks to him. And it's a little sarcastic, and it's usually pretty correct reading on the situation he finds himself in. And so this latest one, I don't know, I was getting more the sense that like this was an actual character kind of on its own. And so do you as the author view that in that kind of same way, or do you use that as kind of like a short-term foreshadowing mechanism, because it seems to always be correct on what's going on next?
Well, for me, like Adam Hayes is one of those guys who's, you know, he's fighting against who he is and what he is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I looked at that as kind of like a metaphor. Like I didn't think of this as much at the time, but it's more potent with what we've seen in Afghanistan, the fall there and everything. Is like this dude, like he thought he was doing the right thing. He wanted to be, you know, the tip of the spear to kill the enemies of the United States before they came home and affected his family. And like, as we all know, people, and as we've all seen, that takes a toll on a human being.
Yeah. Right.
Like if there's no amount of special operations that you can go through that's going to make you not a human being at the end of the night. And, you know, we've seen a lot of this trauma now as this, you know, the war's wound down, and you see, you know, they've got a place called, I think, Nicaea or something like that. I'm pronouncing it wrong, but they're doing all this stuff to try to figure out TBI and whatever. You know, I got PTSD. My brother he has PTSD and developed a brain cancer from TBI. And so we all, I think, know people that do this. And so that voice was my way of saying, like, you can't, I've never met anybody that can push away the training, like that hypervigilance, you know, that constant being on edge, thinking that others shoot. Like, you know, mentally that, like, I'm not in a combat zone. But you
Right.
also know
Makes
that,
sense.
like, things happen. Like, you know, bad stuff happens to crime doesn't have a zip code. You know, something could happen, and you're the dude that's been trained to carry the sword. Your job's to protect. You know, they got it. For me, it got a lot. The volume got turned up a lot when my kids were born, because before then it's just me and my wife. But then, you know, you try to protect as many people as you can, but this is like your tribe.
Yeah.
And so when I was trying to build this character of Adam Hayes, I was like, what would that look like? And so, you know, I think maybe if you had like a camera and you were making something for the movies, you could have something physical. But with this, like, you're in this dimensional, this world of the book, the written word. And I was like, I don't know, a voice. You know, so this voice is like his training. It's who he used to be. And like, what you know, to connect that, like, I would love to, after I turn this one in, the final one, go back and write a prequel to show, you know, who he was when he was, like, you know, knee deep in Treadstone, so you could see that juxtaposition. But
Right.
you know, that voice knows, like, it's like, just kill that dude. Like, he's,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
you know,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
he's not dealing with morality. He's just like, hey, you're a killer. This is what you do. Smoke that fool and go on here and do this, and then you'll be done and go home. But, you know, Adam Hayes is trying to control that. He's trying to control himself. And in doing so, you know, sometimes people just need a bullet, and he doesn't want to kill people anymore. But, you know, it's like he gets into trouble not doing what he knows is right.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of needing a bullet, you write some of the most brutal and most visual action scenes I've ever read. Kudos. But what do you turn to create that? Is it movies? Is it other books? Is it personal experience? Or are you just a sick MFer?
Well, a little bit of that, but, like, I mean, you guys, like, there isn't much I haven't seen tactically. You know, like, I was in Iraq, I was in Afghanistan, went to, like, pretty much every shithole place there. Got to, you know, Fallujah, Ramadi, like, I've been all over, you know, Afghanistan. And then you come back to Memphis and you're on, you know, on the SWAT team for 7 years. We did a lot of, we worked a lot of, you know, besides our stuff, we worked the DEA, we worked with the U.S. Marshals, we worked the FBI. So, even maybe the ATF sometimes. So, like, I've seen pretty much, I've seen enough to, like, understand, you know, how it works. And it becomes, I guess, just like I don't know, it's like you're reading music. You just know how it works. You would know, hey, I need this to happen here. I would need a building like this so I can have an ambush from this side. And so you just kind of, like, you know, it used to be I could take things like, oh, I saw something like in Clear by Fire, I think it was. I wrote a scene where they burned down this house shooting hot gas into it.
Yeah.
And that had literally just happened 3 weeks before in Memphis, where another SWAT team had burned down a house using old gas that, like, went in and caught the mattresses the guy was barricading for.
Wow.
I was like, oh, that could work.
Yeah.
But after a while, you use all those up. And so you're just like, all right, I just need, you know, you think of what you need in the scene, and then you just kind of, like, build it real quick in your brain. You're like, all right, that'd work.
Do you see it, Josh? Like, do you like, are you able to close your eyes and see every movement that the guy, like, in your like hand-to-hand combats, in your fights, or even your shooting? Do you see all those moments in your head, and then you open up your eyes and you describe it as you're writing the words? Like, are you that visual in you know, like, in your own head?
Yeah, I mean, when I write, And when it's working, it's awesome. When it's not going as fast. But I write in my head, like I've always have, is like, I imagine a lens, and it's like, I grew up reading, but I also grew up watching TV. And so I need to be able to see everything. And when I get, people talk about writer's block. When I get writer's block, it's because there's a piece of the recipe I'm trying to make something right now, and I don't have a particular piece. And so it could be like, what does it look like? What does it smell like? Because, you kind of need all these things to like bake a chapter, I guess. And it's, so for that, like sometimes like I'm not like the best martial art dude. Like I did some and I know how to fight, but it's like, how do you explain that? Or you have to look up terms on like jujitsu or judo, whatever. But like, oh, I did this. But like when it gets kinetic, like it's just like, I mean, you just visualize it. What does it look like? What does it need to look like?
Well, at this point in your writing career, what's gotten maybe a little easier for you? And then what's gotten a little more difficult in terms of getting from like, raw material to final galley? What are you finding it's a little easier and a little more difficult?
For me, it's all gotten more difficult.
Huh.
And for a while, I was wondering if I was doing it wrong, because I was like, why is this harder? But I think that comes from like me always wanting to push it, and like the violence and action. Like I know I do that well, but in Exile, I felt like I used it as a crutch. And for me, it's like, you don't want to always, like, if I get in a pinch, like, I'm gonna kill somebody in a book. But
It
otherwise,
always works though. Listen, that works.
Yeah, but it's like, how much of this, it's like you go into the gym and you're like, I'm really good at squats, so that's all you do, and you got huge legs. But then they're like, hey, can you like take this cap off the jar? And you're like, can I use my toes?
Use my
Yeah, and it's like, someone like Mark is really good at this, and like his books always push me, because what was it, the last one, it wasn't Relentless, but where he uses the two plot lines, and one is back when he was in Sierra 6.
Sierra 6.
Yeah, and one is now, and like that book's impossible to put down, because like you have these dueling plot lines that there's always action, and like the parts of the book that I hate the most are like these like connective tissue parts where you're like, I need, I got to bring somebody else in, and really they only need to be in here for this one little part, but you got to build an entire world and make it somehow interesting. And instead of just being like, I don't give a shit, like
just kill him.
You got to do that, but you need them to bring like, the story to move it forward. And so trying to figure out different ways to do the same thing over and over again, but make it fresh, is, for me, it's kind of difficult.
So in the beginning, we were talking about Haiti, and because, that's where you drop Hayes into for all that fun stuff that happens. But say Haiti has the sad distinction as being like the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. It's got poverty, famine, political instability. NGOs and the Western government malfeasance has wreaked havoc, which should be a very prosperous country. It's an understatement to say that Haiti has fallen into like a hellish pit. And you mentioned it before. The president was assassinated last year. And I recently read in the an AP article about gangs on how they control and terrorize Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti. I'm confident as a writer, you did a deep dive in the subject matter of what was going on in Haiti and who the main players. But I'm curious if you discovered something about Haiti that just utterly shocked you.
I mean, how poor it is was pretty shocking. And like the hard thing to do was like, you're trying to write this book and not like Haitians, like they're very proud, and they've done a lot. They've overthrown the Spanish, the French, And so, but like, I felt like as I was writing this book, I was like dogging on them. It's like, like, oh, that's a piece of shit country. And I didn't want, that was never my intention. It was
Right.
like, it was a backdrop, but these are human beings that are literally, as I'm writing it, they're going through like terrible, terrible stuff. And it's too late for me to like change this book. But it was, I mean, the whole place, like, I think they have one cell phone network. Like nobody has running water. It's just like you look at. I downloaded this map because there's not a lot of information, especially after the last earthquake. Like you can't go into Google Earth because like you can, but like there's roads that are just not there anymore. There's whole sections of the city. So there's this map, this trackable map that the NGOs were using. And like it was like Google Map. You'd log into it, you could go there, and it'd be like every day something new's popping up, like this, this hospital just collapsed, or this hospital somebody like came in there and killed everybody and stole the ventilators and all these things. And so
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts because usually you can find a map and be like, oh, I'm gonna go this way, I'm gonna go this way, and then or I would actually go there. My wife's like, you're not fucking going there.
I was
like, all right.
Like, go there for $20.
It's such a violent area. But so like there's just an interesting fact. Somebody was telling me, there's an invisible line between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And Haiti has been, for lack of a better word, like raped environmentally, its minerals, its natural resources. But if you look at that, if you can look at the island of Hispaniola from the air, you could see Dominican Republic on the right. It's very lush and green. And if you look to the left and you see Haiti, and it's just desolate. It's like it's been raped. It's destroyed.
And the one thing that did kind of blow my mind is like I'd heard rumors of it, and I can't remember the name of the place, but if you Google it, like I think it's Carnival Cruise Line owns a part of the island. It's like up maybe in the northeast portion.
Really?
And like nobody could go there except they like dock their boats there. And it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like they have the beach and they got zip lines and crap and these huge like walls to keep the Haitians out. Because they've but that's where they go, and like that's where they go do their little excursions and stuff.
Because it's the Caribbean. It's beautiful, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the kind of thing is like, if like looking at some of these pictures, like if you could make this place stable, like how many, it wouldn't take long for people to be like, I want to go there, but unfortunately kind of like, Somalia is a little bit like that. Like, this beautiful place, the guys in Black Hawk Down and stuff talked about like, look at those beaches and like, oh yeah, you get eaten by sharks. But if like these warlords could chill out, like could that be like a destination? And it's always like, it's always kind of seemed to me that like God gives like for whatever reason the people that live in the shittiest life like the best view. And I think I wrote something like that in the first Treadstone when I don't know exactly where I think he was in Venezuela, which is another kind of failed state.
Right.
And you look at that and you're like he's like, hey, your life's going to suck. Here's a good view though.
Right.
Like, damn, dude.
There's no reason for it to suck like that though.
Yeah.
No reason.
Yeah. Hey, but at the end of the book, Hayes is, he's back at his home and he's kind of dealing with this final threat to his family, and you actually just kind of describe it in such as that he's in the center, and equidistant on one side is his wife and son, and on the other is the man representing the government and the threats that they face, and he's kind of caught in this push and pull between them, and both sides are kind of like, which way is he going to turn, which one does he feel more important, and he kind of just looks down at his watch. Is that kind of is that scene kind of the essence that you see where he is in life in general? Is that he's kind of it's almost a no-win situation for both sides?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing for me logically, like as a I'm a fan of this genre first, and then I became a writer. And so, you know, for me, like, obviously, I hope the audience knows is like I got to keep Adam Hayes like getting into trouble, right? Like, or the book stops.
Yeah, otherwise, it'd be
Right.
boring.
Yeah, but logically, you're just like, God, why does this, thing keep happening? Whatever. And so you have to orchestrate, you have to engineer ways to like create this tension, because the tension is what keep these books going. And so, this guy's like a very flawed person, and like everything he tries to do for good turns out bad. And it's like, what do you do? Like, and sometimes I think you feel like that as a parent. You're like, damn it, I'm trying to do this, but like I keep screwing this up. And it's like, I think that's like what do you do? And so leaving that open like that, like he still has business to attend to. But, for me, it was like, what is his wife thinking right now? Like, they're gonna need a lot of therapy, right?
Yeah.
Especially for their child. Like, if that happened to me, my wife would be like, you can take your ass on.
Right.
But, and so I just felt like that was like a very powerful moment. I mean, I felt it would be powerful for me to be like, shit. Like,
well, it read that way.
Watch.
Because I was like, I was like reading this and I'm like, oh, which way is he going to go? And what's the answer? And then there is no real answer. So it kind of hit me pretty hard when I went through that section.
Well, they talk, I think they refer to him as the tool a couple times, and like that, for lack of a better word, like, I wanted him to become like almost the master tool at the end, where he's like in control of that voice. And then, you carry that on in the next book and it causes issues, because exactly. You get on that merry-go-round and you really quickly can find yourself back to where you started from. And so it's like, what do you do in that situation? And sometimes a lesson to people who want to be authors is like, maybe think a little bit farther ahead than I did, so you can like, I hear a lot of people, they're like, I've got a 5-book series. And, my advice has always been to just focus on one at a time. But, as I progress in this journey, I'm like, dang, I wish I had like a view that was 5 books deep, so I knew where I was going.
Well, we didn't seem to have a problem with that, though.
Yeah. Listen, Josh, you're 3 books deep. So, I mean, you alluded to it. There's another Adam Hayes novel, I guess, in the waiting. What can we expect?
It's in the works.
Yeah.
Well, Adam's going to go back to Afghanistan to deal. He's going to have to rescue someone that was important to him and deal with what he finds on the ground, as what we kind of saw back in, what was it, August, September, that the fall of Kabul, like as that's unraveling around him. And, I think for me, hopefully it's going to be, some closure to what happened over in Afghanistan, and, maybe some of the veterans who read it. But that was one of those things, like, I don't think anybody saw it coming. And, but it was like a gut punch, and it just like, I don't know, for about a week, like everything stopped for me. And I'm just like, you see this stuff and it, kind of messed with my head. And I think that writing, if you're able to do that, is kind of cathartic, and you're like, hey, let's investigate this. Like, what would that feel like? And, people have always asked me, would you ever go back to Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever? And I'm like, hell no. But like, what would happen if you had to? Like, that's another kind of thing that like, allows you to see the human side of Hayes.
Oh man, that sounds good.
I like it. One of the first times that we talked to you, what did we ask you a question, and your response was something like, you just deal with the suck. Like, just deal with the suck
as best you can.
Yeah. Right. All right. So let's put this away for a little bit, Josh. And Mike, let's raise a glass, because Josh has gotten past the traditional portion of the interview where we asked some serious questions. We talked about some serious issues, and now we're going to get into the dumb and stupid.
That's,
That's where I live.
Hmm.
It's my favorite part.
My favorite part too. We probably should lead with this.
Yeah.
Probably have
Forget the
more.
book.
We'd probably have more downloads. You'd probably sell more books. All right. Here's my first question for you. You're a dad. I'm a dad. Mike's dad. And sometimes it's hard to keep promises we make to our kids. But what's one promise you've made that you didn't ever dare to not keep?
See, my son has I've learned he has this memory that I don't know where he's gotten it from. Like if you mention something, like he holds you up to it.
Ooh.
And so right now, I don't know where this has come from. This wasn't for me, but my wife and him have been talking about this pool party that he wanted to have.
Right.
And so over the last couple months, I mean, this thing, he's got me taking notes on it. This thing's getting massive, and it's
like a circus.
Wait, how old is
I'm
he?
serious, dude. The dude's 5, but he's I want and I had nothing to do with this. I just got brought into it. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? That sounds like a really awesome thing, like that theme park. And he's like, no, it's the pool party we're having at my house. I'm like, we don't have a pool. What do you? He's like, that's
now
why
we
we're
do.
getting the bouncy houses. And so one time he had this thing lasting 3 days with his friends on one day, family friends on the next day, and then open to the general public. And I'm looking at my wife and
did you charge?
It's like a bachelor party.
It hadn't happened yet, but it's I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, what the fuck are we gonna do? You
can't keep that promise.
Yeah, I'm like, you need to nip this in the bud. And she's like, I can't. Dude, it's grown too big.
It's unleashed.
Yeah, so I got people with bouncy houses and those guys clowns
the
and
rental
shit,
parks.
all
Oh my
jugglers.
God. Just as soon as she's it's next week, I just all right, bring it. And I don't know. It's
Dude, that's awesome. I love it though. We
gotta meet this.
We do
guy.
anything for our kids, bro. We do anything.
We do.
Birthdays are special and important.
Yeah, we do.
It's not even his birthday. His birthday was in March.
So this is just a party? This is just
holiday party.
This kid's going to be a legend in high school.
Nip it in the bud. I keep
Holy
telling
shit.
her. I was like, dude, this kid is
I thought it was a birthday party. No, you're
his birthday was in March. It's nothing.
it's
This
just
kid is
June 2nd.
Live every
they didn't
day.
even have a date. But literally, I'll tell you, this is a true story. This is how this kid gets anything he wants from his mother. The other day, literally to my embarrassment, he has this blanket that he's had. It's got this little thing inside of it, like a lovey, but he calls it G and Puppet. Literally, this dude has woken me up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to roll his little puppet up in his little G. So it's I told him, don't ever call me down here for this damn G and Puppet. So my wife, she still does it because she's a mommy and mothers and daughters.
Yeah.
This dude comes down 2 weeks ago and says it's G's birthday. And I'm like, who the hell is G? He's like, G and Puppet. And I was like, they're not real. They can't have a birthday. And he's like, they do have a birthday and it's today. We need a cake. I'm looking at my wife, are we is this for real? Is this really happening? She's like,
yeah, Josh, go with it.
Your parents must be laughing their asses off right now about all this.
Dude, I'm like, we're not having a damn birthday for a puppet in a threadbare little carpet, little, blanket. Then 10 minutes later, I'm driving a freaking Baskin Robbins to go buy a damn ice cream cake. We sit out on the front porch. He invites the neighbor and their daughter over, and I'm just sitting there singing happy birthday to a damn puppet. And I'm like, there was a time.
You record that shit? Did you record it?
I don't think I did, but I'm sure my wife did. We'll find it. But sitting there being feeling like a lion in a cage. Was I really ever a lion? Did I run? Did I run on those savannas and
declawed, baby?
That prey?
Declawed, and you're
declawed, no teeth.
You're in the Memphis Zoo. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, I'm just sitting
behind a cage.
Yeah,
this kid's got to come on the show next time.
All right, so we explored that a little bit. Let's explore this now. But you have to be honest with this question. What's the first thing you do when the buttons on the television remote don't work?
Usually I'll either change the batteries or get the what's that Lysol out, because like they get their little grubby hands on everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, why is there like melted sucker on the freaking thing or whatever?
Buttons.
Like, yeah, it's just like whatever, dude.
First thing I do is
knows that.
I bash it against my head. It'll work. It'll work.
Wow,
It works.
It's my job is just to provide batteries and clean shit.
Provide batteries and turn off light switches. That's your dad. That's when you know.
Yeah,
that's what you do. All right.
Who turned the damn air up?
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Shut the back door.
So you mentioned your wife a couple times already. If there was a movie made about your life and you could cast the actress playing your wife,
not
who
touching
would you
that.
choose?
Next. She watches this stuff. I don't know. Whoever, like, the most beautiful woman.
Gal Gadot?
Well, she's got blonde hair, so I don't even know. Somebody beautiful. Jennifer Aniston. Very attractive. And nice lady.
so you like Jennifer Aniston, but you don't mention that. I see these questions already coming down the pipe. Oh my
God, dude, no.
No, it's not happening. I'm not playing your silly game.
All right.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, on a scale of 0 to giving birth, where do you rank the pain of stepping on a Lego in the middle of the night?
Oh, God.
I've never given birth, but I'm going to tell you, like, I have screamed like a little girl, like stepping on those sharp ass. Like, they need to make them like glow in the dark. They know what these kids do with them. And
proximity, switch.
There is nothing more painful than stepping on one of those little dudes, because they like collapse just enough, but then they make this 90-degree angle. And
it's like a punji stick.
Yeah,
dude, exactly.
Punji stick. It is.
It's like, those little
and
sharp.
It's got all the germs all over it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're just immediately like, mother, and then you can't cuss, but I don't even know. Wake the kids up.
All right.
Like not cussing.
You can only pick one tagged hunt: Alaska brown bear or mountain ram in Patagonia. Which one do you pick?
What are we hunting with?
Who knows? Let's just say rifle. Nobody wants to do a brown bear with a bow. Forget that.
Brown bear with a bow?
Cam Haynes killed one with the bow, but anyway. I don't know. I think I would go.
Really? Wow.
I got a video of Jack Carr whistling at a Kodiak bear in Alaska.
Yeah.
Calling it to him. He's got his phone. Have you seen that?
Yep.
No,
I was like, dude, what?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
And then bear starts coming towards him. And then he tells it to go away. It goes away.
And it goes away.
And I was like, what the hell would you have done if that bear hadn't gone away? He's like, well, I had a SIG 357 on my hip. It would have gone away. And I'm like, dude, what do they teach you in the SEALs where you're calling a bear? Like a dog.
He probably had a howitzer behind him.
Wow.
Since I can't match that story ever, I'd probably go after the ram and try to do something cool. But it would never be. I'd go after the tomahawk. And
the rams aren't going to eat you. Yeah,
guy's got balls of steel. That's fucked up, man.
All right. Well, I'm going to make this one easy then. Are there any new authors that you know of that other people don't, that are kind of blowing you away with what they're doing?
Let me think.
I made it harder, didn't
he was going to tell a joke there. I could see he was going to say something silly.
No, I mean, no, I'm not going to go with the low hanging fruit. Man, I don't know.
Well, Mike, I wasn't on the interview, but you guys, and I read the book. Woodward.
MP Woodward. Yeah.
The handler.
The handler.
Josh, if you haven't read that book, it's just
this book.
It's fantastic.
Got to read this book.
Oh, they get a pen. Maybe it'll be this. Who is it? The handler?
The handler, yeah. CIA guy that can write his ass off.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
crazy.
I'm sure it's hard for you because you're locked away in a cage trying to crank out all this content.
He probably doesn't get that much time. Like we end up having to read lots.
I read a lot of nonfiction because the problem is you start reading books like this, all of a sudden you're stealing shit. you know.
Mm.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that's good. And like, so I got to be careful, like, you know, what, like, there's a couple times I've like, you know, reached out to Brad Taylor and be like, I really like what you did in, you know, this, can I steal it? And he's like, oh, it was like 10 books ago, whatever. Or like Mark, I was like, you know, I really want to steal that scene in I can't remember the name. It's a Gunmetal Gray where he goes back to the United States, and he's like,
I think so.
jacks those kids in Washington, those thugs in DC.
Oh, yeah, that
I think
was
that's
good.
like the best scene ever written in the history of scenes. Is like, because that's how you'd have to do it, right? You can't go buy a gun in DC.
Right, no,
Go to the hood
he
and,
does it
like, jack
perfectly.
one. That's exactly. I'm like, damn it! Why didn't I think of that?
Go after some drug dealers for their stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like for some cash and some
weapons,
you know.
Hey, Josh,
breach of
let's raise a
trust.
glass, Mike. Congratulations,
It's
Josh.
up.
Thanks.
You have completed the gauntlet with us.
Payback sucks.
Treadstone Transgressions. It's the third book in the Ludlum series. It is out now. It's my favorite book
Yeah, this
you've
is
ever written, sir.
this is super good, man. The pacing is beautiful, and man, some seriously good action, which is what we always love to see.
Dude, no one does it, but no one does it like you, Josh.
Nope,
Awesome,
not at
bro.
all.
Well, the goal is always to come in and have that book be your best book of the series. And so if I can come in, that's why I kind of nudged you guys, because that's my litmus test. If I come here and you're like, yeah, best book of the series, I know I'm doing the right thing. But if like,
Yeah,
you know,
You know what?
maybe,
You know what?
yeah.
Let's rewind.
right?
Josh,
Then you
that
back
was,
it up and you're like, damn.
Josh, let me rewind. So I really liked Treadstone Exile. This one, just as good. Just
Yeah.
as good.
A little
Yeah.
better. Maybe
It's a third
smidge.
book.
It's better.
Yeah.
Nah, dude, we love you, Josh. Congrats,
Yeah,
bro.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me here. Always a pleasure.
that's awesome, man. Good to see you,
Michael,
sir.
we had the illustrious Joshua Hood on today talking Robert Ludlum's The Treadstone Transgression, his
Sounds
third
fancy.
book in the series. Out of the three books, this is my favorite.
Favorite number 2 over here, yes, sir.
I would raise a glass to Josh for writing stories that we love, and Sean Cameron, who we've missed and we love. But cheers.
I'll drink twice. Ooh.